Welcome back to another episode of Private Parts with me, Tom Lucy. This is the podcast where nothing is off limits. And this week, we are joined by two very special guests, the hosts of the Stuffed podcast. It's George Egg and Martin O'Dell.
Hey!
Oh, there's fans, noise.
What a posse!
I know. I want that every morning.
We haven't got a posse
I know. Can we get one of them?
That's not fair.
This is the exact room where you do your podcast, isn't it?
Yeah.
It
Is it weird seeing it set up differently?
My vinegar's still on the shelf, so
Is it?
don't panic.
That's quite a continuity issue. We'll have to move that. But this is it. This is the room where you do yours, right?
It's weird. It is weird being in here, and we're normally. I'm normally we face that way.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of facing there, so I'm kind of where you are.
Yeah,
but,
that's it.
But sat lower down.
Just swivel it round.
Yeah.
And you have like a full, not a full kitchen setup, but you have some kitchen utensils.
Yeah. Well, we'll speak
have a
nicely.
little worktop.
We have a microwave.
Okay, that's a
we have an
kitchen
induction
utensil.
hob. But no, we
Is
basically.
this the actual microwave from your set?
And they've moved the table. It's
Wow.
very weird, just spotting things that have changed.
Wow.
No, we normally have like a little induction hob, and it depends how creative we want to be, but we'll bring in something that's cold or constructible instead of actual cooking. So,
Yeah.
We're quite
Okay.
self-sufficient as well. So
Yeah.
I mean, you always come in with Martin. So I travel up from Brighton.
Yeah.
Martin just comes across from London, from elsewhere in London, and
Okay.
so he will often bring a rucksack with loads of stuff, and my contributions have become lighter and smaller.
Yeah.
like throughout the records. So last time I bought some dehydrated kale, which
Okay.
weighed almost nothing, and some little sort of plastic tofu cutting knives.
Yeah.
But you bought in
4 saucepans.
4 saucepans, one of which was an example of a good saucepan, and one an example of a bad
Expensive
pan.
one, yeah.
And then 3. It's just like really.
Were you,
need
what were
to
you
go
sort of
across both.
reviewing saucepans on that episode?
Well, no, we have this segment where we talk about like things in the kitchen, like gadgets or anything like
Yeah.
that. And it could be so weird. So George brought in tofu slicing knives, which we'd
Okay.
never seen.
Yeah.
And then I was talking about frying pans. So I just wanted to talk about, everyone goes about non-stick, cast iron, what's the best. And
Yeah.
I'd just been gifted Hexclad, and I would never buy them. And I was just like, I'll bring them in, and I know George will have something to say about it. And he was like, oh, bloody.
I like cast iron pans.
Yeah.
You do?
Just like
Okay, you're a
kinda
diehard
cowboy
cast
stuff.
iron
Yeah,
fan. Yeah.
George is the kind of person you could lock away like outside and he'll be all right. Whereas I'm the kind of person you put inside and I'm like, ooh, pretty things.
Yeah. So is that where you sort of differ on a kitchen? Are you quite old school with kitchen equipment, and you're fairly up for new gadgets?
I'm anti gadgets really. I've given
Okay.
away quite a few gadgets.
Yeah,
but
I think we're pretty similar, really, in our approach to simplify everything.
yeah.
Get what you need. Use. I mean, I'm a bit of a sucker for a car boot sale and finding
Yeah.
nice old pans and that sort of thing. But I'm happy spending a couple of quid on a old cast iron pan and cleaning it up.
But then you
spending
do-
a load
You
of
love a
money on
cast
gadget.
iron pan. I know you've
Yeah.
already
Big
said
on
it about
cast
4
iron
times.
pans.
Exactly.
I
We
want to
need
be
a sponsor.
sponsored by Lodge listeners.
But you always go and buy cool old things like your microwave. You don't just go and buy a microwave. Yours is like a retro
A retro
old
microwave.
kitchen microwave. What is it?
No, it's not. It's a catering one. It's
Yeah.
a Buffalo one. So it's not retro, but I mean, it's like
It looks retro,
brand new,
though.
but it looks very industrial.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm a bit of a sucker for my kitchen.
Do you like
looking
old
nice.
things? You like old, sort of slightly retro equipment?
Well, yeah, I do actually. I've
Yeah.
got an old Kenwood Chef. The
Yeah.
old, same as what my parents had when I was growing up. One of those.
Right.
Yeah, I like that, and I've got this collection of toasty makers, but they're like they're like sort of analog ones. I call
It's an
them.
audible noise from the room.
Yeah, everyone loves a toasty.
Well, they're like campfire ones. So they're like a clamshell
Yeah.
steel thing with long handles, and then
Okay.
you do it straight over the gas hob.
Okay.
Or over a campfire, and then you get these really nice charred edges, and
So tell me how this podcast came about, because it's been going for 4 months, I think you said,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Were you friends before? Did you know each other before?
Yeah, we met online like
So
everyone
you're
does
both
these days.
very
Yeah.
successful. What shall I call you? Food influencers, or what do you like to be referred
Just
to?
nice
as?
guys. Just nice,
Just
nice,
nice guys.
food
I
people.
really don't like the word influencer.
I know some
don't
people
mind
have an issue with it.
content creator, influencer. Just
Content creator.
Well,
Yeah.
it just influencer kind of puts me
I know,
in a
it's got
bracket with a load of
18-year-old
Love Island
dogs.
yeah, and I feel a bit.
Hey, I do love
I feel
Ireland.
a bit icky and a bit like.
Did you meet on Love Island? Is that right?
Well, I've actually just been sent a case of WKD, who are sponsoring Love
Wow.
Island this year.
There we go.
All due to the podcast because we did a cheeky
Wow.
Vimto on it, and
Maybe
then
they're,
they messaged.
they're buttering you up for the next series.
They
I
can
think,
do whatever
can't
they want to me for a WKD. I love it. So they messaged me and said, "Oh, do you want a case?" And I was like, "Yep." So case is coming through the post. Looking forward to that.
WKD, wow.
Absolutely love it. Yeah. But no, we knew each other. We kind of like roughly exchanged messages and said, "Let's try and catch up." And then we caught up. And then we had a cup of tea, didn't we?
Let's meet up and chat. Just because I'd seen Martin's stuff and I just thought, I just
Yeah.
clicked with it. I thought I get what his message is. I don't know. It felt, I think that at the time, certainly there was a real glut of very personality-free food content online.
Yes.
Where it's just like bird's eye view of
Hands-only content.
Yeah, just making a dish and there's no personality there. And what I was doing was, because of my background in stand-up, I was kind of trying to put that into my content. And I was watching yours and just thought, well, it's just very similar kind of. It just feels like I know this guy.
Yes, you're right. There's a lot of food content, but there's not a huge amount of sort of funny food content, is there? That is quite a niche.
Well, I did realise that if you watch both of our content like without any sound, it's awful because there's a lot of stupid faces and a lot of like camp moves and like back and forward to the camera, and then there's like a bit of food. But it's worked out all right.
Yeah.
And we've done some stuff together. Yeah. But then I always remember I was sitting in my car and got this like 5-minute voice note from Matt, the producer. It was just like, I put it on double speed and was listening to it. It was like, podcast, George Egg. And I was like, right, we'll do a podcast with George Egg. I was like, brilliant. So then I remember messaging you and just being like, pod, should we do it?
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah.
So,
and then Matt, one of our producers, is based in Brighton as well. So I met up with him down there and talked through it. And and then it's just come from there. But
because George, you're a stand-up as well, and we were trying to work out before whether we've ever met or gigged together before.
Yeah.
I'm sure we have somewhere.
I think we must have.
Yeah,
we must have done. I mean, not
Martin,
years, but...
what's your background? Is it sort of? Have you been in food for a long time?
Well, yeah, I've been a chef since I was like 15.
Okay.
But then, fleeted in and out of doing bits and pieces. But worked in kitchens since I was like 19, 20.
Yeah.
All the way through, really. So,
right. Okay. Yeah. And then this sort of Instagram thing started 4 or 5 years ago, maybe.
Yeah. I mean, so I used to work.
It's such a massive thing now, isn't it?
I know. Well, that was the thing. So I worked with Joe Wicks, which was like in the early days when his Twitter was funny.
Yeah.
And then his Instagram started growing, which became less funny. But when I started working there, it was really nice. I was doing a lot of recipe development. And then when I left, I was like, right, I need to have my own business and do something like this. And I was so anti doing like social media because I was like, I saw how much of a heavy lift it was and like the stress of it all. And I was like, so I was just putting pretty pictures up and then obviously nothing happened. And then the business I set up was doing rubbish. And then someone said, why don't you just do videos? And I started doing videos and then it kind of snowballed from there. And it was weird because my TikTok blew up, but I was doing really long videos, like 7-minute videos on there.
Yeah.
And it was at a time when TikTok was pushing longer form content because they were never make their mind up who they're competing with. So I was doing these long video, like just chatting, talking about everything. And everyone's like, this is amazing. No one's doing this. It's all 45-second videos of
Yeah.
there you go. There's a meal. So my channels kind of grew from that and it was great.
Yeah. Did yours come out of lockdown or was it
after
that?
lockdown?
Oh, it was after,
I basically spent the whole of lockdown just raising a child and then was kind of like doing stuff and not really doing anything, trying to build a real business that was all my meal plans and stuff. And then at the end of it, I started doing videos when everyone else had already sort of blown up. And I was like, why have I not done that? Yeah, I should have done that. Would have been a good time to, but...
And does it feel like do you feel like it's become more saturated in the last... I mean, even just in the podcast space with food, there are so many massive food podcasts now.
Yeah.
It feels like it's really become like...
I mean, I suppose the whole podcast thing is just...
but there's specifically food ones. There's a lot of really big food ones.
Yeah.
Well, I think the thing with food, as my mum always said, is everyone has to eat.
Yeah.
So and anyone can cook.
Yeah.
And a lot of the content creators I know aren't even chefs. You know, like El Burrito Monster, he came out and he'd done an accountancy degree and he was just loved food. He started cooking food, wasn't going to be his career. Then his channels blew up and he's like, I'll just do this for a job and that's it. And loads of other people who are like real chefs, I think they're the ones that are like bitter at all these younger kids that are like, oh yeah, I did a degree.
Is there a feeling of that from slightly more traditional chefs that they're
I
anti?
reckon so.
Do you think?
But I always said that there was this kind of like weird blend of chefs that were in the Jamie Oliver era where, they were personalities, and they kind of were cooking, and then they kind of led into that way. But
Yeah.
then there's chefs that kind of got stuck behind a little bit, and now they're forced to have to do social media. And
I was going to say, because they like
Gordon
Gordon Ramsay and is like huge on TikTok.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
he's one of the,
that
one
was
of
the
the
early stuff, right? Those people doing it. But then
Yeah.
you look at, I don't know, Tom Aitken, and it is so.
I was watching one of his
Yeah.
on the way up, and it's fascinating. Although, to be honest, I would say with him, his is interesting because I've always thought when I've seen Tom Aitken on TV, I've thought he seemed a bit aloof and a bit.
Yeah.
Whereas actually with his videos, he seems a bit more humble. It's almost like, you're kind of seeing a different.
Yeah.
like
different
incredible
side to him.
chefs, but they're just
Yeah.
they don't know how to interact
Yeah.
with the camera in terms of like the whole social sphere, which is quite funny. And I always use the whole Kurt Cobain analogy. You know, like he never wanted to be famous. He loved doing music, and it's like all of these chefs, they love food, but they never really wanted to become famous. Now they're thrusted into doing it, and they have to be
and
a
I suppose
personality.
traditionally, obviously there's open kitchens now, but traditionally the kitchen would be hidden away. So actually, you want to perform, but with this big barrier between you and the audience, being the diners.
It definitely
behind the
feels
wall.
like it's become like a much sort of cooler job in the last few years being a chef, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
less shouty, I think.
yeah, and
Less
also just
aggression.
like it sort of feels like a much more viable like career path now than it would have been. The amount of content online about cooking videos and famous chefs and even like the top drawer, your favorite restaurants. There's a lot of like food cooking things around. So for people like I know a lot of people who are in their early 20s who are like wanting to go into that. It just feels like it's sort of blown up in the last few years.
Yeah. I think what I love about the kind of the whole chef world is it feels like it's very it's very classless. Whereas I mean I think both you and I being stand-ups, there's an awful lot of public school.
Yeah.
People who went to public school who are big in stand-up, and there's a bit of there's more of a class issue there.
Yeah.
With sort of people from working class backgrounds feeling a bit like, this is an industry that's all the people at the top are publicly educated. Whereas it feels with food, with chefing, that there's far fewer people from public school backgrounds who have made it big.
Yeah, but I think times have changed. I honestly think, back then it was you had to have a degree or a qualification to get in the places. But like now you could, if you've got a bit of passion, just walk in somewhere and say, can I come and work? And then you could get in. Where I think back then the barrier to get in was, are you going to work 28 hours a day, and you lose your life? And it was like, no, I don't want to do that. But then now people are willing to do these nice shifts in beautiful bakeries. Or,
it does feel like the whole industry has just calmed down a bit, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Because certainly when I was growing up,
drugs have got more expensive.
My idea of what being a chef was like 20-hour shifts being shouted at.
Yeah.
Everyone's got a drug issue. Yeah. It seems like quite a dark world from the outside looking in, but
brilliant.
You're right. Now it seems a lot more like
very cool.
quite exciting.
Yeah, and now the bears come out and everyone's like trying to get back.
But now
into
you're
it.
right. It's a lot of bakeries and sort of coffee shops. And
Yeah.
It all seems a lot nicer now.
It's gone hand in hand with, as a country, our kind of appetite for good food has increased. So I guess that's going to marry with the popularity of it as an industry.
Is it similar to George with the comedy industry, where it can be quite a competitive space, and comedians can not always be quite as supportive as you might think they would be on the way up? Is it similar in cooking?
I don't know what I think's interesting with the cooking world. I mean, I've never been a professional chef at all. I've just gone into it as a passionate amateur, and I started doing the online stuff because of lockdown, and I couldn't go on stage.
Yeah.
So that's how that all happened for me. But I mean, I think that's probably because of my experience doing the comedy circuit, where you are so frequently with your peers, working alongside them. That doesn't seem to be the case so much with food, I don't think. I just think it's why I sought you out and thought, there's a soulmate there I can work with, because I'm used to that. Whereas I get the impression that maybe, I don't know, you'll know more than me because you've worked in kitchens, but where it's more of a solitary thing.
It depends. I've always said, like, people think that kitchens are this horrendous place to go into, and the head chef is that big man that's all greasy and burnt and just like wants to hurt you. But I've worked in places that there are people like that, and it's horrendous. But then there are other places where I spent most of my time at Andrew Edmonds, where the head chef was my best mate now, because he taught me so much. You know, they were willing to give you the time. And I get so many messages from people online saying, you know, I'm doing my first shift in a restaurant, what should I do? And I was like, don't go in there expecting to, you know, be the head chef. You're not. That's not what you're there for. They know what you know or don't know. So just go in there and absorb and just enjoy it.
I suppose the one thing about that it seems from the outside is that it's a very like hierarchical, like a restaurant kitchen is everybody knows where they stand. Yeah. You know, there's a very obvious like pecking order, isn't there?
Yeah.
Is that where that sort of slightly intense treatment from the top comes from?
And it's horrendous. Like I said, some places are brilliant, some places are really bad. But like that hierarchical thing, if you're a horrendous human being and then someone's gone, you're more powerful than that person, there's going to be trouble. And I worked in a few places where there was that very exec chef, head chef, sous chef, and then you're like down the bottom as like a commie. Yeah. And you're just expected like just to be sort of their boxing bag and shout it out.
It's almost like the army, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's almost like ranking in the army.
It needs to be in some respects, otherwise nothing would get done. If everyone's just sort of like wandering around, just like, I might poach an egg now, or I might do this. It doesn't happen. That's why they have these like stringent sort of like laws and whatnot's going on. But some of the sous chefs I work with, I was like, whew.
So what restaurants did you work in before you started doing the podcast?
Andrew Edmonds was the main one. I spent a lot of time in Soho, in Lexington Street. Then the place which was horrendous, a place called Floridita. And it was...
I'm happy that you're willing to name these places.
Yeah. And I'll even name him. Andy Rose was the head chef. I don't even know what he's doing now.
Shout out to Andy Rose.
Yeah, I actually booted his book out the front door when he gave it to me and signed it on my first day. And then when I left, I was like, I don't need this anymore. It was a shit book anyway.
What was wrong? Was he just a bully?
He was just a bully. He came in like all nice. Like I always remember it was like a galley kitchen. It's a big long kitchen, maybe 20, 30 people.
Yeah.
And down the end was like an old school sort of like circle window, his desk. And then he would be like looking through. And then my first day he would come out and it'd be really nice. Martin, how's your day? And I was like, yeah, great, lovely. Yeah, it's nice here, isn't it? He's like, yeah, blah, blah. Service starts. What the fuck is this? Who are you?
Right.
Blah, blah, blah. Who the fuck? Guy got sacked on the first shift. Sous chef's like throwing you under the bus. And like, I was kind of,
How old were you at this time?
Probably about 23, 24,
Okay,
And I've always been like me. I was just like, oh, whatever. It's not, I can't take this personally.
Yeah.
But it was so sort of like, oh, you're shit. We're not your shit place around the corner anymore. And I was like, well, clearly this kitchen's a lot bigger. You know, I'm having to pretend I care here.
Yeah.
Oh, it was just horrendous. But
it's so funny, that juxtaposition of like everybody sat in the dining room having a nice time, and then the other side of the wall, people screaming at each other.
But I was always like, you know, if you want to get something done, ask someone nicely. You know, I wouldn't go to George. I'd be like, George, pass me that water. You wouldn't do it. But if I said to you, George, can I have a little sip?
Do you think that
haven't you got your
Do you think that sort of culture of anger in kitchens was sort of created by that Gordon Ramsay style Boiling Point TV shows? Was that, or has it been around for long before that?
Yeah, I one of my best mates' brothers, he worked in top Michelin star places, and ages ago I did this podcast called The Rubbish Podcast, which we won't plug because it's shit. It was my old one. But I talked to him, and that was the first.
We're throwing a lot of people under the bus here.
Yeah, exactly. No, but he mentioned quite a few people's names, but he was Michelin star, and he just said, you know, you were expected, 20 odd hour days, and it was like the people below you were basically just like kickbacks.
Yeah.
You know, if they did something wrong in order, you wouldn't blame yourself, you'd blame them. And it just sort of like went down. So the hours and the time that you did in those places were tough.
Yeah.
But that was all behind kitchens. There was no cameras, nothing. So it was never a show like Gordon is, I suppose.
Yes.
I don't think he's like that every day in his house. It'd be,
it'd be a nightmare,
bonkers, wouldn't it?
I bet he is. I get the impression he's someone who shouts at his kids.
Do you reckon?
Yeah.
He's got enough of them, hasn't he?
Yeah. I hope he treats his house like a restaurant. That would be great.
I know.
Do you have aspirations to go to start your own restaurant and go into that world, or not?
No, I mean, I've done a few since getting sort of more involved in the food thing. I've done a few services, like sort of pop-up-y things, and I've enjoyed it. But God, it's hard work, especially after doing stand-up, which is, I mean, there's a lot of travelling, but beyond that,
the hours are quite nice.
Yeah, and you're your own boss, because that's something I was going to pick up on, talking about the whole hierarchical thing of kitchens. Doing stand-up, as it's just down to you. Yeah. And it's like and if you were in a position where someone's saying, well, you got to do this, you got to do, you'd be like, no,
Yeah, I
I'm
think
in
you're
charge
right. I
of
think
this.
it is quite, once you get used to that life, it's quite hard to then go into a situation where you're suddenly in a pecking order.
Yeah.
Because as a stand-up, you just do whatever you want all the time.
Yeah.
And
Oh, no,
either
so
works
much
or it
so.
doesn't work. But
Well,
yeah.
when I mean, this is going back like 12 odd years, but I've been doing stand-up since I was 19. I'm 51 now. It's a long time. But I just had a bit of a kind of like, maybe I can't do this forever. And I thought maybe I'll do something else. And I started doing a teacher training degree or whatever it's called, PGCE. And the first 2 weeks in university, I really enjoyed it. And then I went into a school and was just like the first day told, I had this first day, which I found all a bit stressful, and then got home and my mentor called up and said, this is a bit awkward, but the deputy head's been in touch, and can you not wear your earring? And can you not wear your skull ring? And I just thought, I can't.
Yeah.
I can't. And I basically, the next day I went into the university and I said, look, this isn't for me.
Yeah.
Because I just got so accustomed to
doing what you
being
want.
in control,
Yeah.
Just suddenly being in a situation where someone's saying, you've got to do this.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah, I
work
can
for
see
me.
that. But also the restaurant business, I mean, even ones that in London seem from the outside to be doing quite well, having spoken to people who are involved in them, it's so hard to make any money in a restaurant, isn't it?
Yeah, there's
even
some
the ones that
statistic, like,
everyone
isn't it,
thinks.
like 9 out of 10 restaurants fail or something like that.
Yeah,
isn't it?
I think loads of them are just like big passion projects for really rich people.
Yeah.
They'll just go and pick someone and be like, let's put him. I think like Fallow, they've got some big time investors, and then, they're kind of like, right, we'll pump it full of money, see what happens. And it's obviously become quite a thriving place. But I think a lot of them are like, take a punt, let's see what happens. If it goes well, then it goes well. And I think certain people do have a bit of a formula, like Mountain. What other ones they got? Brat. Yeah, they've kind of got this formula where they know that it will kind of work. They've got the clientele that will want to come to these places and they'll work. But any kind of new concept, I think, is...
Well, it's also, it's mainly Instagram now, isn't it? It's like restaurants blow up on Instagram.
Yeah.
And they're really good at that marketing. They get a load of followers, and then some people go purely off the back of seeing a video on Instagram.
Yeah.
It's wild.
Yeah, that's what everyone's looking for, that viral thing. Like, what's a viral dessert we can do? And then that's what they get known for. But they're like, but we're really good at steaks. And like, we don't give a shit, mate. We just want to have the 10 kilo pancake you do.
The 10 kilo pancake. Yeah. There's a place
stack of. Yeah.
There's a place in South Kensington, I think, they do the massive croissant. Have you seen that? It's like they do like a enormous.
I've seen
and it's
videos.
It's purely just an instant, but
it's ridiculous,
like
isn't it?
queues around the block for people queue for this massive croissant. But that does seem to be like how people run restaurants now.
People make a living out of, like my friend Todd, eating with Todd, he can make or break a restaurant. He could go there and review it and be like, it's pretty average.
Eating with Todd, And
then he could go to a place and say, this is the best thing I've ever eaten.
Yeah.
Mate, the restaurant will be fine for
That's
a
weird
couple
to have
of months.
that power, isn't it?
It is weird, isn't it?
Because there's a guy called Keith as well, who was on TikTok, and he was a guy that just sat there and reviewed food in his car.
Yeah.
He was, I've been sent here and I've got a 35-pound bag of this, and then he'll eat and be like, that's 10 out of 10. Business is saved. It's mental.
It is weird. Like I met one of the guys from Top Drawer the other day.
Yeah.
And their videos, I mean, I if I'm going on holiday somewhere and they've done a video about wherever, like Lisbon or something, I will watch that video and I probably will go to a restaurant that they recommended in it. So they do have a lot of power.
Yeah.
These kind of people.
I'm always crippled by. I mean, I say it every time anyone says, "What coffee do you want?" But I find it so hard to make decisions. Like if I'm presented with a menu, I'm like, I don't, get
would
someone else.
You know those
from.
Top Drawer
those
videos where they say favorite restaurant, favorite coffee? Would you be able to do one of those?
I'd need a big run up.
Yeah.
Do some research.
Would you find it hard to narrow it down to?
I'd find it hard to even think of somewhere, just because like I watch that and I just think, well, I'm not going to go there. It's too expensive. I'm not going to go there. It's too expensive. So when if I ever got that, and they're saying what's the best?
They always favourite restaurant is always the River Cafe. It's like, well, obviously we'd all like to eat at the River Cafe.
But I think that's the thing when they ask a lot of those people, they're quite foodies. Like we eat, but we cook more than we probably eat out.
Yeah.
So it was like, what's a place you go and have your favourite burger? McDonald's? Five Guys?
Burger Brothers in Brighton would be.
There we go.
Yeah, that's a really good
Favourite
independent
pizza?
little place.
Pizza Express. I love pizza. Sloppy Giuseppe. Well, they got smaller. I went and had one the other week and I was like, I remember them being a bit bigger. And now they try and stitch you up by cutting the middle out and putting salad in it and calling it something else.
That's what I think funny. It's funny when you get a pizza, like, frozen pizza box.
Yeah.
And so often you get it out, and it's so much. There's so much space around it and plastic, and by the time you've got a box that's like size of an LP and a pizza the size of a single.
So is that your niche in that world of? Because I know with your videos, you're making things that are sort of slightly
my videos essentially
unusual.
Kind of, mostly sort of. I mean, there's more sort of conventional recipes in there too, but the kind of, when I started doing the videos, it was chiefly about taking an existing fast food thing like McDonald's or Greggs or whatever, and doing something to it to make it a bit more interesting, or gourmet, or turning it into something else. So like getting a chicken sandwich and turning it into a kind of coronation chicken. So by toasting some flaked almonds and putting some curry powder and some extra mayo. And what else did I put in that one? Coriander. Sultanas.
Oh,
and it was delicious. Really worked.
But I think the thing with George's stuff is if you look at it from the outside of like, I'm going to say this politely, but like stupid people, they go, oh, well, he's just putting stuff in a sandwich. But if you look at it from like a person that cooks or eats and enjoys food, it's incredible. Like the flavours, the understanding of.
Thank you.
Well, I've never said it, so I thought, and all of the stuff that you see him do, like the massaman curry, the beef one, and that you just when you watch it and go, I understand this. It's going to be amazing.
Yeah.
And we even did it with the mince pie one at Christmas when we were putting all things in, and I had so many messages from people going, "Yeah, this has blown my mind. It's so good. It looks stupid."
Like hot sauce in mince pies, and it really works.
Yeah, it's still.
So is that something that you've thought before? I wonder if that'll be nice, or you've.
Well, that one was.
I did a job.
That came from you. You did a job where you were for
Tesco's.
For Tesco's.
Yeah.
And so that was like led by you. But with mine, it's more. I mean, it's about kind of going, well, what makes something more interesting? It's also about being in control and kind of going, well, which probably comes from the whole being a stand-up and going, I'm the boss, you know.
Yeah.
But also in a kind of sort of social way, it's sort of saying that, cooking, it can be having a bench load of ingredients and spending all afternoon, but it can also be adding one thing to something else, and then what you taste is different to what it was. That's cooking. So kind of encouraging people who wouldn't think of themselves as cooks to experiment and try something super simple, and then realising, oh, well, that made that more interesting. So then maybe I'll get a cookbook, and then maybe in a year's time, I'm applying for
so
a
are you
job
constantly,
to be a chef.
I'm imagining at home in your kitchen, you're constantly thinking, I wonder if that'll be nice with that.
Yeah,
sort
I am
of putting
actually.
weird foods together.
All the time.
Is that what you're doing all the time?
Yeah.
I wonder if Marmite will be nice with ice cream. Is that just constantly?
Only one way to find out.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Martin.
Do you think that would work?
I don't know. Salty.
Salt works.
Yeah, it's a good choice.
I tried the other day for the first time ice cream with olive oil.
Oh,
which
yeah.
I didn't.
So did we.
I didn't.
We did it in our last podcast.
Yeah. Is that what your last podcast?
Well, the last one we recorded,
Yeah, that was something I didn't think sounded that nice, but it is.
Yeah, you just kind of get that weird mouthfeel, like when you pop a cod liver oil tablet in your mouth, and then you're eating like ice cream.
Yeah, I don't know if I liked trying it.
Yeah.
I don't know if it appealed to me as far as flavour goes.
No.
But then I think that's what's so interesting about food. It's not necessarily even about liking something. It's about just experiencing something else, and then it might lead you to go, well, I'll try that instead, and then suddenly you've made a new discovery.
Are there sort of popular food trends that really wind you up that are going on, like the sort of obsession with smash burgers and coffee places and
the daft stuff I hate.
What really winds you up?
What really? Oh, here we go. The thing that winds me up is like people using like absurdly expensive things just for the sort of the clickbait of stuff. Like there's a lot of creators that would go, we've got this amazing Wagyu, and then they would take a chunk of it off and then just do something stupid with it.
Yeah.
And it's kind of just like you're just flexing how much fucking money you've got. Yeah. Whereas, we would go, let's go to Aldi and buy their Wagyu, which is £6 for a steak, and show someone how you can make that taste amazing, because our channels are about wanting to get people to enjoy cooking and not so much sit there and go, oh, one day I'll be able to afford to hire my own private Japanese chef to come round and,
I think
bless
also,
the steak for me.
And I think both our channels and our podcast is so much about accessible stuff. I think that's that's one of the real big things is that people haven't got a lot of money. People, want to have something interesting and don't want to be throwing stuff away. And that's kind of our core message.
I did a student series, and the first one, someone went, oh yeah, what student's going to be able to afford fish? And I was like, oh God, all right, I've got to lower the barrier here.
cheap white
fish.
mystery frozen fish.
Yeah, exactly.
That was one that we were talking about.
So the next one I had to do reduced style fish. And I was like, here you go, just go look for the reduced style. And then they were like, oh, but who's going to cook fish in halls because it's going to stink? I was like, fucking hell.
I'm trying
I was like, give me a break here.
Yeah.
And I did say, oh yeah, you might be able to be a bit bougie and use some Kewpie. And then everyone's like, who's spending £4 on mayonnaise? I was like, come on. And my comeback is always like, well, just don't spend it on horse tranquilizer and you can probably have enough money to go and enjoy yourself with some Kewpie.
My comeback when I get any sort of trolling is just to say, okay. That's all I do. I've got so many comments where I've just written, okay.
Or I've been posting quite a few sort of like comments that people have been laying into me, and it's quite funny. Like there was a guy called Clive the other day. Oh man, he was like, "What is this slop?" And I was like, "It's a pasta dish." And he went, "What idiot cooks their pasta before they've made the sauce?" And I had to, and then I do like a long old one. I was like, Clive, darling, I was like, let me introduce you to the world of Blanch and Refresh. And I'll do it in like a very patronising, sort of like educational way. And then did this whole thing. And then, he didn't shut up.
It's funny that people would get so, it is the sort of content that really makes people angry, isn't it?
Yeah.
Cooking content for no reason, really.
Oh, yeah. Oh, no, I find that fascinating. I did, the number of years ago, I went on This Morning and did some. Yeah. So in my live show, it's a bit of a different angle with the cooking. I cook with things like power tools and stuff. So I'll and that was kind of my my shtick. And I did a segment on there where I was doing their cooking segment, but I was steaming some fish with a wallpaper stripper and cooking on clothes irons, pancakes.
I bet that really angered some morning TV views.
It was insane. So it was the hottest day of the year. This was in 2019, I think. Yeah. And it was unbelievably hot. Yeah. And can't remember the name of the presenter, but she was holding the wallpaper stripper down. No, it was Eamon Holmes' wife. What's her name?
Ruth.
Yeah, Ruth. Yeah, Ruth. And she was saying, this in this weather with the steam all coming off the wallpaper stripper wasn't any good for her hair. But anyway, and it went out live, obviously, and then I got in the car and was looking on Twitter, and there's just so many upset people just going, this is so stupid. And it's like, it's a comedy show. That's meant to be stupid. But also, it's like the hottest day of the year. Yeah. Who is at home going like that?
Watching this morning.
Go outside.
Yeah.
And,
sweating.
So I think, the people who are going to, take the time to write these long,
presumably with the
podcast,
the podcast is nicer because it's a longer form thing rather than a short TikTok video. The people who are listening to it are genuinely invested in it.
Well, I think that's
they're there because they want to be
exactly.
there.
It's self-selecting in that way.
But you also find that audience that when the segments, like the little clippings go out, for people that it's obviously been pulled out of the context of the whole thing. Yeah. And then some people are like, who would do that? It was like the beans on toast one went really mad, wasn't it?
I saw that. That came up on my thing as well.
That was trending. It went viral.
The beans, So explain what the beans on toast thing was.
We were just talking about. So we have a little segment of basically saying, Britain's favourites, we call it, and what can you do to do it a bit differently? Baked potatoes, baked beans, whatever else. And this was baked beans. And there's one of many ways that you can mess about with baked beans, but I like the toast, crunchy peanut butter, then the beans, then hot sauce and coriander and a bit of lime, and you get a kind of satay flavour. Really works. Juice over there looking there, maybe that works. Yeah. And it works. It's not for everyone.
Imagine the anger on Instagram. Yeah.
Well, just so many people going, oh, just cheese. Although you,
that's what you did this one.
But you were playing devil's advocate there, and and obviously, Martin's someone who likes to experiment in different flavours and everything else, and that's the whole point of it. But just I think because it went viral, that one, it went, it picked up the pace and went under the noses of people who weren't looking for it. Yeah. So then you're going to get. Although that said, we had maybe 50 sort of negative comments on there, and then I did a little bit of maths and worked out the percentage of the number of people who watched it, it's like that was like 0.001. So it's like, and then it had like, I don't know, about 5,000 likes. So you kind of go, the problem is that the vocal negative people are what you hear. Whereas actually when you realise how few that is compared to people who just click the heart button.
You should go back on This Morning and just try and create a recipe that will annoy the most the most.
That would be a good challenge actually, wouldn't it? Yeah, just see how many thick keyboard warriors you can upset.
Well, the other one I had on YouTube recently, he had a terrible username, Shakespeare something, but I did this video talking about food waste and veganism, and whenever I get the beans, like cannellini beans, whatever, I always pour the juice out and just drink it for a laugh, because I always like my stance is all about food waste and like eat the food you buy, keeping it simple. So drinking the bean juice is just like the most ridiculous way of sort of combating food waste. But some people just don't get it, and this person didn't get it, and he's just like, why don't you just teach people how to use potatoes and salads like any normal person instead of just drinking bean juice for clout? I'm like,
for clout,
mate. I actually quite enjoy it now. I've got quite accustomed to the little salty brine that you get from it. And he just went on and on and on. It was like, in this climate, climate change, what you're doing is absolutely irrelevant to food waste. And I was like, okay, have you watched any of my videos? And he was like, yeah, I've watched all of them. I was like, well, you clearly haven't. So, just
drinking bean juice for clout is a good name for a book or something. If you ever want to release a book.
Your biography.
Yeah.
Oh. I think what I think is weird is just when you get like the sort of prevailing comment seems to be essentially just be normal. Isn't it? You know what I mean? It's like people get really upset by you being in any way interesting. So it's like, just stop being weird. I can't cope with it.
Just stop.
Stop having fun. That's like the main premise, isn't it? Oh my God. Yeah.
Okay, we're going to come back in part 2. We're going to talk about Martin's puppetry of the penis. I don't really know what that means. And George doing a live cooking show with his bum out. Interesting, George.
Yeah, but it wasn't live.
Check and past.
Health and safety wouldn't allow it.
Is this your segment on This Morning?
Yeah.
This is just, I'll tell you in part 2.
We'll find out in part 2. Don't go anywhere.
Oh yeah, I've been cooking naked and my penis keeps falling in the stew. Yeah. Just get your bum out, not your dick out. Come on.
Welcome back to part 2 of Private Parts. We are joined by George Egg and Martin O'Dell.
Here we are.
From the Stuffed podcast. Martin.
Hello.
Puppetry of the penis.
Yeah.
Could you explain a bit more about that?
Yeah, it's kind of the kind of clues in the title, really. But
this is what you used to do before.
Used to do, yeah. I had like a bit of like let's say an early midlife crisis, but
yes, quarter life.
Quarter life crisis. I was like 19, and it was just like it's such a bizarre thing because I was working in a theatre, and there's this show that was touring for years called Puppetry of the Penis. Simon Morley and David Friend, 2 Australian comedians, like hilarious. And I kind of read the book and I was like, this is just great. It's comedy. Like, if you think of any boy that's been to a party and they've come out of the shower and stuck their Johnson between their legs and wandered around like a woman. Yeah. That's basically what we did.
Yeah.
So I was 18 at the time and I saw them backstage and I was like so excited. I was like, oh my God, it's you guys. I was like, I can do a trick. And they were like, no. They were like, no, fuck my mate. And I was like, yeah. So like, this is weird, but I was 18. He was probably about 30. He was like, come in the toilet with me.
Okay.
And showed him.
Is this a story for the authorities rather than for us?
It's totally fine. I signed a disclaimer. And then I did the trick, and he was like, "You, this is amazing. You have to come up on stage." So there was this bit where we sort of like had a stooge in the audience, maybe if they could do it, and we'd come up and do the burger. And it was a trick that we did that you can imagine. You got the BAP and the 2 testiculars, and then you've got the big old sausage that wraps around to be the meat. So I could do that quite well. And then, long story short.
Could you do that now for us, maybe?
Yeah, it's quite scary.
Quite a good plug for the YouTube channel.
Thank goodness it's a podcast.
Exactly, yeah. Oh, God, get it out of my eye. So then I basically emailed them when I went to Australia and I said, oh, look, I'd love to catch up. Like, it's amazing sort of meeting you guys. And then Simon Morley, the original guy, said, come and meet me. I'm at the Beachy. It was like 200 metres down the road. It was mental, the whole of Australia. Right. So I caught up and he said, do you want to do a tour? And I was like, sure. So I was 19. They were going to pay me quite a lot of money to go to Edinburgh, do the month Edinburgh tour, and then 3 months touring afterwards. And I did that for 3 years. Yeah.
Wow, you did it for 3 years.
At the risk of sounding like I'm making a joke, they were massive, weren't they?
Thank you. Yeah.
I mean, no, but the show, Puppetry of the Penis was huge in Edinburgh, wasn't it? And it was,
because I remember it.
Yeah, because I said to George, like we're talking about when the comedians, when you go to Edinburgh and you go there and you try and sell the show in and like you're there flyering everything. I turned up as 19, selling out the debating hall in Gilder Balloon every night. And I turned up going, what am I meant to do? They were like, just perform. I was there for 45 minutes doing the show, having to do no flyering, nothing. Yeah. Sell out tours in like the Manchester Apollo, like the Opera House. Yeah. It was just mental.
Yeah.
But the premise of the show basically was 2 dudes stand on stage. We had a cape, which we got rid of quite early.
Yeah.
And then we were there in just like cool shoes and socks. And then we just made shapes out of our nuts.
It's so funny.
It was such a laugh. And the thing is, it was completely non-sexual. And when the show happened, I called my mum and said, Mum, I've been offered this. Should I do this or stunt and stage combat, which I was training for at the time? She went, do puppetry. Yeah. So I did that. And my mum and dad, they saw the show. My gran, my brother. Yeah,
so
it was hilarious.
Yeah. It is the kind of show you can imagine being huge at the Edinburgh Festival, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh no, totally. Well, I was just going to say what I think is funny is I didn't know any of that when I got in touch with you online and when we met for a coffee just to talk about the food stuff.
Yeah.
And then it turned out like you were saying, I've been up to Edinburgh, and it was like, that's suddenly it's like, well, that's why we're clicking. I could see the performer and
Yeah.
But the thing with it is everyone says, how do you do it? And I was like, I have a complete lack of shame. Like in the nicest way. I just don't really care what people thought about me or laughed at me. Like Joycey from Dirty Sanchez said, the dick you got is the dick you got for the rest of your life. So you might as well get used to it. And I was just like, this thing isn't going to get bigger. It'll probably get a bit smaller every now and then, but stage lights are like quite warming, so yours all right.
Sure, yeah.
So it didn't bother me. And like,
it wouldn't be so good now when it's all LED.
I know, exactly. The eco shows. Yeah. But we always had chats like in our sort of contract. It was like, make sure the aircon is not on full blast. You know. We have to know the ambient temperature of the room.
That's great.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
And then with you, George, there was some other nudity that went on earlier in your career.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. It was
Is this
just
how
so
you
funny
bonded over your
it was when we didn't realise until later on that we were like, well, we both started out
in nudity,
getting naked on stage.
Yeah.
So when I started out, so I've always had props, big case and lots of silly props and things.
Power
so
tools.
It's always been a kind of, exactly, a special act, proppy show.
Yeah.
And my finale when I started out for years was right at the end of my show to a piece of music. I'd put a coat hanger through my earring hole.
Okay.
And then to a piece of music, just strip and hang everything on the coat hanger. So by the time I was naked, it was all hanging down in front. So it was all very, PG.
Early Magic Mike.
Wow.
Is that what he does?
Yeah.
I don't know.
What was the song?
I went through various ones. Did keep your hat on for quite a while.
Nice.
Although I didn't have a hat. So
Guys, I've got to be honest, a stuffed podcast live tour would be incredible to combine these two things.
Imagine that.
Yeah,
just us sitting in the nude.
Yeah.
Maybe.
It's quite a good
That'd
idea.
Be funny, wouldn't it? That'd be a nice counter.
Yeah.
Anyway.
But yeah, so I'd end naked, turn around, walk off, so everyone just got a glimpse of my,
funny.
Just to be clear, buttocks, and not, as Martin said just before we went to the break, anus.
I just say stupid things like that on my channel, like with star anus, and then they're like, you just said anus. I'm like, what's like, oh God.
But between the two of you, you've got it covered, right? Because you can do the front, Martin, and you can do the back.
Yeah, there we go.
It's perfect.
Yeah.
That's so funny. And you didn't know that about each other when you met?
No,
not at all.
Wow.
No.
Yeah.
Guys, we have a dilemma that's been sent in by one of our Private Parts listeners about cooking. Well, it's actually more of a food hygiene question.
Okay. He asks two people who are quite happy getting naked.
Yeah. Which I wonder if you might be able to help with. So here we go. Dear George and Martin.
Oh.
Here we go. Recently, a neighbour of mine invited me and my boyfriend to Sunday dinner with his parents and family. He was super nervous and wanted us to help make a fun atmosphere. About halfway into the evening, everyone was drinking and having fun. He was cooking 2 roast chickens with all the trimmings, and so I went to help lend a hand. But as I left the kitchen and sat back down, to my horror, out of the corner of my eye, I watched as he pulled both roast chickens out of the oven and dropped them onto the floor. They went skidding all over the kitchen with the juices. Bear in mind, he has 2 dogs running around. I continued to watch in horror as he scooped them off the floor and back onto the carving rack and carried on as if nothing had happened. No one saw this except me. He then served up the dinner and I shamefully let everyone else eat and just pushed it around my plate. I didn't want to ruin his big night with his relatives. Should I have told everyone? And what should you do in that situation? Do they need to be binned? ?
Tricky, isn't it?
It's definitely a professional just picking it up straight away and
it's
not even winking.
And what about that rule? What about the sort of 3-second germ, 5-second germ rule? Does that count?
I saw a video online where they were talking about that, the science of it, and and actually if it. But I guess the gist of what I saw online was that it depends what it's falling onto. So I guess if he's got a recently mopped floor and it goes straight back in the oven and the oven's incredibly hot and it's in there for another 20 minutes or whatever,
then it's fine.
Then I assume it's you wouldn't want to know.
If you went to a dinner party and you saw the host drop the food and then put it back on the plate, would you be okay with that?
Yeah,
you'd be fine.
If they were mates.
Martin and I have talked a lot about the whole thing of sort of being a parent and where you get to that point of just sort of some things on the table, you pick it up and eat it,
and eating things out of our beards.
That wasn't what we thought it was,
Yeah,
I thought that. Well, I had that the other day. I had a bit of. I thought it was a bit of been grating cheese, and then that and.
What was it?
That's all right.
Oh, I know, but it's a surprise.
Just another food, yeah.
But
it's the way it said skidding across the floor. I wonder
doesn't
how long
sound great.
It was like just had this comedy
and the
chicken.
talk of the dogs just beforehand as well.
Yeah, just like rolled around a big hairy chicken. It was just What kind of dog was it? That's the other question.
Yeah, we do need more detail from this.
But I suppose
ill dog.
Yeah, but with the chicken, like you could just take the skin off and then that bit, the internal breast isn't touched.
That's a
or you
great
could
point.
just wash it quickly, give it a quick rinse. But as you said, like an oven blast will probably do it.
Yeah.
I think if it was like a tiramisu and he'd scooped it back up and that could be a bit weird.
That could
but
be
the
a
chicken,
problem.
the chicken's got loads of internal.
I think it's
stuff.
okay, right? I don't think I would care that much.
I think it's that whole thing of if you don't know.
And it was a mistake. If he had gone and just like pulled it out and then rolled it on the floor and then put it back and gone like, hope no one saw. But the fact he probably was trying his hardest and dropped, I'd let him off.
Yeah.
That's fine, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay,
Keep
fine.
your floor
We'll say that's fine.
And, don't worry about it.
Somebody told me before we started recording that the pair of you are not huge fans of veganuary, dry January, these kinds of trend type.
What?
I just speak to my publicist. I wouldn't say
Is that fair to say?
No, it's not. I think it's. Who said that?
I don't want to name any names.
No, I'd say I'm not doing veganuary.
No.
I've not done veganuary.
I always say this. I cook maybe 60-70% like vegan food or veggie food.
Do you? Okay, fine.
Yeah, but then I just put some meat with it.
Right.
So, the people that end up doing...
That's the key detail at the end, isn't it?
But then people always get sort of like so caught up on veganuary and how like regimented they have to be with it. But I think veganuary is an amazing thing to get people into cooking.
Yes.
But people look at it so blinkered. Like meat and 2 veg. Like, I'm going to cut chicken out. So I'm going to have fake crap chicken and veg. It's like, no. If you look at all the cuisines like we spoke about, like you go Middle Eastern, you go Asian, loads of this stuff is veggie and vegan because it's packed full of flavour, seasoned well, and is just banging. But like us British people go, fuck's sake, well, chips, egg and sausage, can't have that. I'll switch the sausage for a weird thing.
It's so polarising. It's either you get people really upset going, it's got to be vegan, or similarly, I'll do a video that's like a vegan one, and
I also
just
think it's so.
Well, I was just going to say, the comment will be, "You lost me at vegan. I switched off when you said vegan." It's like, lighten up, So I think no, we're fine about veganuary.
Veganuary, and we love booze.
I was going to say about on the booze thing. It's so common, isn't it, that people will just go crazy in December, then feel really ashamed at the end of the year. But I'm going to do dry January, and then they sort of struggle through the month, and then because they've got so much pent up energy at the end of January, they just go even more mental at the end of January.
January's such a shit month as well. It's so bad. It's like grey, it's weird, tax bills, just life in general. You're getting back into the swing of things. Like your Christmas presents aren't what they thought they would be. And then your new hobby you've already given up. And it's just like, it's bad.
Yeah, it is bad.
Just enjoy yourself.
I would say if you're going to do a vegan month or a dry month,
do it later in the
year.
Do
it in May or something.
You're right.
When it's spring and you're outside and you go, I'll go for a swim in the sea and whatever else, and then you go, well, I don't need a beer.
Are you big drinkers? Are you both big drinkers?
No, I'm not.
Partial to a beverage.
Yeah. No, I haven't got a problem.
Not a big drinker. That's not what I've heard from our source.
Yeah, exactly. I just get a bit excited. That's my downfall. Like if I have, yesterday I was saying, I went to a kids' party and we sort of sat down. I was like, this is quite a good party. And then the bar opened up and I was like, a Guinness at 12 is all right.
Yeah.
And then 4 Guinness deep after an hour. And I'm like,
what
are we doing?
abuse.
Go for a roast, a bottle of wine.
Were you doing your puppetry of the penis?
Yeah, exactly. Kids shows really goes down well. Yeah.
Suddenly the police turn up.
Yeah, exactly. But no, I'm partial to a beverage.
Yeah.
But
I like a drink.
Yeah.
But
I went to a a dinner party last year, and you know the sort of tradition with dinner parties, you bring alcohol, you bring a bottle of wine or whatever.
Yeah.
Somebody brought I think this is actually from an episode of Curb Your Enthusiasm, but they brought a really nice loaf of bread as their gift for a dinner party. And I thought that it's a great, because everybody brings a bottle of wine and they end up stacked up. No one really drinks them at the dinner party, whatever. But bringing like, I don't know, a nice piece of cheese or like a really nice loaf of bread seems like a way more interesting thing to bring to a dinner party.
Well, I think the wine thing or bringing a bottle of booze is always the last minute thought, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like the garage, the petrol station
go grab
wine.
Something, or a box of chocolates.
Yeah.
Yeah, a loaf of bread would be wonderful unless they're like gluten free.
Yeah, it was in an episode of Curb Your Enthusiasm where he brings bread and they all go, who brings bread to a dinner party?
I suppose it would depend what the dinner. But if you were like a real control freak and you'd plan exactly what we were cooking, and then someone else brought, because I could see that would be an issue if you'd kind of gone like someone's gone, I've bought a pudding, and it's like, well, I know what I'm doing. I've got it all sorted already. Yeah, that might be.
What would you bring to a dinner party?
I'd take both. I'm quite
generous.
Actually, well, do you know what? Actually, no. I'm going to backtrack on that. My wife is very generous.
Okay.
She and I'm often kind of going, don't we just take that? You know.
Yeah.
So she'll be like, we've got to take. So she doesn't drink. So she'll be like, well, we've got to take some soft drinks and take a bottle of wine.
Yeah.
And then why don't we get this? We've got this nice bit of cheese in the fridge. Let's take that.
Yeah, nice.
Like, I got that. I was looking forward to that later. Might not get opened.
Yeah.
So as a couple, we tend to.
Hot sauce seems like the obvious answer for you. You like a bit of hot sauce.
I do like a bit of hot sauce.
A bottle of hot sauce to a dinner party.
Yeah.
Might not go with
case of WKD.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But you're generous.
Livens up a party.
Yeah, a case of WKD
a lot.
to a children's party.
Yeah.
What about you, Martin? What would you bring?
Bread.
Bread's a good one. Yeah.
I
A
don't
loaf
know.
of white Hovis.
Yeah, I suppose we don't really. I'm just trying to think. Last time I went to a dinner party.
Do you not really do dinner parties?
No, well, I normally do it. We normally
You
have the
host
dinner
them?
because we've got a kid.
Yeah.
So it always becomes a bit of a pickle when all my mates don't really have children, so they've under no time constraints or anything like that. So we normally host. But
do you find this as well? Because since I've kind of got much more into food and into the kind of food world, so many of our friends will go, "Oh, well, I feel it's too much pressure to invite you around for dinner."
yeah.
Oh, they sort of like
It's a real
intimidated.
shame.
Yeah.
It's like, look, I just love.
Do you
being
really play
cooked
up
for.
on that as well?
I go just really upset because if someone invited me round and we had beans on toast, with or without peanut butter and coriander, etc.
Yeah.
But and that's just, it's just nice. It's just really nice being cooked for.
Yeah.
And so that whole thing of like,
You should
I've got to
invite people
impress.
around and then shout in your own kitchen like they do in restaurants while everyone's sat in the other room just panicking.
At myself.
Yeah, hot food on the pass. No, I was going to say, I had a friend that I used to live with,
self-harming.
called, and his name's Mike, and he was quite a funny human being. But he used to make me food when we used to live together. And he once gave me a smoked salmon sandwich, no butter, bread with still the plastic on the smoked salmon, folded in half. And I've got this picture of him just like laughing, giving it to me.
Yeah.
And then there was this whole sort of like period where he got a new girlfriend and she was into food. And he started becoming this like amazing cook. And he invited me over to Bristol to his place. And we had a 3-course meal. It was like a curry. He'd done these like corn on the cob things. He had made these like miso caramel, like brownies. I was like, what has happened? This is brilliant. Yeah. And then the other day was, Mark, can come do a cook up at the studio. And he was like, I've been perfecting it was miso cookies. I'll bring a couple of those.
Miso cookies?
Yeah, and we're all now, fuck off, you wanker. Like, you can't be doing that. We're just having pizza and ice cream, so shut up. But, funny old Mike.
But did he bring his miso cookies?
Hasn't happened yet. I'll let you know.
That sounds like something you could do on an episode, miso cookies.
Yeah.
Miso. Okay, let's run through some quick fire questions.
Okay.
Favourite dessert?
Sticky toffee pudding.
You're not big on desserts, are you?
No,
You're not a big dessert guy.
Sticky toffee pudding or affogato because I like coffee.
Okay.
Nice.
Yeah.
I think
you, George?
It's a bit boring. I'm going to go tiramisu.
Tiramisu.
I know it's a classic, but I mean, come on.
Okay.
It's a classic for a reason.
15-minute dinner recipe?
Just don't talk about Joe Wicks. Cup of soup. I'd go stir fry.
If you were on your own at home and you wanted to make something really quickly, just for yourself.
My stir fry with a really cheeky hack, which is the velveteen chicken. If you've never done it, you can do it in 15 minutes. Take a chicken breast, slice it thin, bit of bicarb, bit of soy sauce, mix it round, chop all your veggies, start frying your veggies, rinse your chicken, velveteen, so it's been softened down, pan fry that, mix it together, do the old 3-3-1-1 sauce, which is 3 soy, 3 oil, 1 vinegar, 1 sugar, perfect balanced sauce. Chuck it in, yum yum. Sit there in your underpants.
Nice.
Love a movie.
Don't forget to drop your chicken on the floor and rub it round.
That's it. Skid it across the floor.
I would say this is having talked earlier about me liking old-fashioned things. Pressure cookers are having a renaissance at the moment.
Yeah.
So I would a big shout out to a cookery writer, Catherine Phipps, who's written these amazing books on kind of her book's called Modern Pressure Cooking or one of these. I would say her pressure cooker pasta dish, which takes 5 minutes. You put everything in with the dry pasta and the sauce, and then it's 5 minutes.
Wow. Is a pressure cooker the same as like an air fryer? Or is that different?
Whoa. Don't bring air fryers into it.
I was going to say, what are your thoughts on air fryers?
It's just an oven! It's just a bloody oven with drawers and handles.
So when I said earlier about sort of trends, that would be quite a big trend, wouldn't it?
You should have got upset about. You've forgotten.
I know.
You'd wiped it from your own mind because it's too upsetting.
Because I'm being polite. Because Jamie Oliver's just bought an air fryer. Everyone's fucking
of course he has, yeah.
A pressure cooker is, you basically, it's a contained... It's like a bomb. I mean, it's contained. The lid locks on, and then it's got a valve, and the pressure inside gets bigger than the pressure outside. So, hence, kind of stories of old pressure cookers exploding and stuff going all over the ceiling. But modern ones are built in a way that they can't do that. But it just means you can cook stuff very fast. You keep a lot of nutrients in. It's really good for that. A lot of like things like slow cooked meats that would take hours and hours and hours.
Sounds like an air fryer to me.
Get out.
No, get out. It's the opposite because everything stays wet in it.
And you're not frying anything. Yeah. And an air fryer isn't frying anything. It's just blowing hot air at things.
Yeah.
So when people go, I'm really healthy. I'm having an air fried chicken. No, you're not. You're just having an oven baked piece of chicken.
We've really hit a nerve here. It's nice.
Although the way they could improve an air fryer is by putting a temperature probe in there. I genuinely think it'd be brilliant. Little one that goes into your meats, then you don't have to keep checking it. You can just leave it shut and it will tell you when it's done.
I'll tell you what else they could do to improve air fryers. Make them look nicer.
Yeah.
Because they all look sort of like they've been inflated and
they
like
do,
a
don't
sort
they?
of like a naff little car or something.
Yeah. They do look like a shit car.
Yeah.
Death row meal for both of you. Let's go 3 courses. Let's go starter, main, dessert. We've already heard your desserts.
I wish I'd had notice of this. It's going to take you hours.
When anyone asks me, I always say a buffet. You know, like when you go to like one of those places,
like an all-you-can-eat buffet.
Yeah, but you could have a bit American and a bit of
like a world buffet.
Yeah, like the one I have at the O2. It's so sick. Just go along and you're right. You have to
plan
plan
this. Like something at a resort.
Yeah. But you have to plan it because if you go too carb heavy at the beginning, you're really stitched up. So
There's
you
a big one in Bristol. Is there still one in the middle of Bristol, like a massive world buffet?
I don't know.
It's the only sort of place where you'd have like a slice of pizza and sushi on the same plate.
Yeah.
And then,
It's so good though, but you have to go for the really expensive stuff at the beginning.
Yes.
So you basically go like all the seafood.
Yeah.
You're like, well, what should I have?
Yeah.
I'm going to have a lobster, 10 of them. Why not?
Yeah. It's very strategic, isn't it?
It is.
It's like going to a Chinese buffet and not filling up on crackers, right?
Yeah. Or chicken balls.
That's how they make the money. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you'd go for a world buffet.
Yeah, just for starters.
Okay.
My favourite soup, French onion soup is my favourite.
Yes.
I love a French onion soup. So I'd have that for a starter if I was being sensible. And then I'd just have probably just like a nice bit of beef, like a bavette or something with some chips and a peppercorn sauce.
Nice.
That's nice with 10 bottles of red wine, like proper gouty.
Yeah.
And then
proper gouty.
Yeah, and then a Negroni for finishers.
Yeah. Wow. And a sticky toffee pudding.
Might as well.
Nice.
Yeah.
You, George?
I am honestly, I'm always so crippled by choice.
Yeah.
I wish that menus said food and no food.
Yeah.
And then you could just go, I'll take
Do you
the
like
food,
a restaurant? I quite like a restaurant that has a very small menu. You know, there's like three options.
When it's a set menu.
They just tell you what you're having.
That's what you're having, or like a tasting menu.
Yeah.
I would go for, I tell you what I'd go for my starter. It's a thing it's kind of dinner party standard my dad used to do it's raw mushrooms.
Yeah.
That are kind of ceviche, so cooked in just in lemon juice and garlic, kind of just marinated in that with prawns and loads of parsley. That is just that with a little thin bit of brown bread, delicious.
Yeah.
And bring it in.
For main, I'll go for a full English breakfast.
Nice. Yeah.
With everything on it except beans.
I love
beans,
it.
A full English breakfast for main. Brilliant. Do you have fried bread?
Yeah, I will. I'll have one fried, one toast, and one just bread and butter.
Oh,
a full English breakfast in the evening is great, isn't it? Like a breakfast in the evening is great.
Yeah.
Have you been to that place in? You're going to hate what I'm about to ask because it's a real Instagram question. But there's that cafe in Bethnal Green or somewhere east that does a.
Is it
it's like
Norman's?
No, that's in North London, isn't it? Yeah, that one.
Yeah.
What's it called?
El Polici or something.
It's a very famous old
Yeah.
East End cafe.
Yeah.
I think I've got a book called London Calf, so
Yeah.
I think it's in there. Yeah,
It'll be in that,
But I
yeah.
haven't been there, but yeah, beautiful.
Do you like a sort of old transport cafe?
Oh yeah, like proper old architecture,
Greasier
bit of
than
Yes.
paneling, bit of formica.
like set menu 1, set
Where
menu
the
2.
chicken is skidding across the floor.
Yeah, yeah.
And you see, can I have the chicken
Yeah.
that skidded across the floor,
A cafe
please?
that's failed all food hygiene
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
standards. Yeah, we
Brilliant.
like that.
And then dessert. I mean, I've said tiramisu earlier, so I guess I've got to stick to that. But now I'm thinking, what's something else?
Tiramisu, wow.
Wouldn't mind a bit of your toffee pudding if I could have.
Yeah,
two
Yeah,
spoons.
I'll
You're gonna
share.
share. You're gonna share.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
You're in
Okay.
the same cell in this fake prison.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I forgot that we were
Yeah.
going to be killed tomorrow.
Yeah, both of us. Might as well do it naked.
We're going to be humanely destroyed.
Guys, thank you so much for coming on. This has
all right.
been so fun.
Thanks for having us.
The Stuffed podcast is out once a week.
Yeah, stuffed with an exclamation mark.
Yeah.
Thursday mornings.
Yeah.
Thursday mornings.
Thursday at midnight, in fact.
Oh,
Well,
is it?
1 minute
It
past.
drops.
Yeah.
Is that the right phrase? It drops Thursday at
It
midnight.
does. Like the chicken.
Your social accounts are you have names, right? On social.
Yeah.
You
I'm
have
just at
the
George
Snack
Egg.
Hacker.
Well, the Snack Hacker is the name of the series.
Okay, fine.
I did there. I'm at George Egg.
At George Egg.
That's easy. I'm Lagom.
That's what I was going to ask about.
Chef.
What what is Lagom?
So it's a Swedish word that means not too much, not too little, just right. So the easiest way to explain is like IKEA. So if you have too much
Yeah.
stuff in your house, then you're
Yeah.
going to be cluttered. If you don't have enough like stuff to put anything away, then you're going to not have enough good storage.
Yeah.
But if you have like IKEA, which is like perfect storage situation,
Yeah.
you can put your stuff away and you have balance. They call it balance.
Balance.
Yeah. So mine's all about creative cooking and food waste. So
Yeah.
if you have loads of stuff in your house, then you're going to create waste.
Yeah.
If you don't have enough stuff, your dry store, your vinegars, spices,
Yeah.
you can't be creative. And then if you have this holy matrimony in the middle, where you plug in fresh ingredients as and when you need them, you
Yeah.
create less waste, save the world, eat good food, yum yum.
Love that.
Beautiful.
As a closing sentiment.
Can I plug my book as well?
Of course you can. Yeah.
I've got a book coming out called The Snack Hacker. It's coming
Snack-
out in June.
Okay,
yeah.
great.
And the first chapter is called
Cover's looking great.
Full English for Dinner. First chapter is called Full English for Dinner. And
Is
it's
it really?
literally about,
Okay, great.
about having a full English.
Okay.
Yeah.
The Snack Hacker coming out in
Snack
June.
Hacker in June.
Okay, fantastic.
Yeah.
Guys, thank you so much for coming on. Let's hear it for George Egg and Martin O'Dell.
Hey!